Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Infant School webinar. This is Uwcsea in Singapore, and today we are presenting our webinar event for our Open Day series, focusing on our Infant School Learning Program. My name is Malika Ramdas, and I am Director of Admissions at the college. In a few moments, we'll get started with our program. But while we wait for some more attendees to join us today, please enjoy these brand new videos featuring a day in the life of our infant schools at our East Campus and at our Dover campus. Okay, welcome again, everyone. Thank you to those of you who joined us very promptly, and welcome aboard to all those who joined us in the last few minutes. We hope you enjoyed those videos which have just been created about featuring our infant school on each campus, East Campus and Dover campus. So again, my name is Malika Ramdas. I'm Director of Admissions at the college. And today our webinar focuses on the learning program in our infant school. I'm just going to take a few moments to go through the program for today's webinar and give you a few housekeeping instructions to help us with today's session. So as you know, we have a number of both virtual engagement opportunities as well as on-campus open day events coming up. So today is the focus is on the infant school, and next week we start with our on-campus events. So our infant school open day at the East Campus will be on the 9th of September. And then at the Dover campus, we will have our infant school opportunities on September 16th and 18th. It's still not too late to sign up for our open days, so we encourage you to do that. And it's a wonderful opportunity to visit the campus and see us in action. So the first about 30 to 45 minutes of today's session will be a presentation by our primary school principals on both campuses. The infant school is part of our primary school and focuses on the grades K1, K2, and grade 1. After that, we will have a question and answer opportunity where we will invite our infant school vice principals to join us, and they will be ready to answer the questions that you put into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or at the top of your Zoom screen, as the case may be. So please do put in your questions, submit your questions, and we will try and get to as many of those as we can. Some of my colleagues will be behind the scenes answering some of your questions, and then we'll take a bunch of questions live as well. So that's what the program looks like. Before I hand you over to our primary school principals, just one little tip. If you'd like to see our comments and the presentation in a different language other than English, then you can activate the show captions option and select the language that you prefer. So I'll give you a moment to identify that button right now. Okay, so I think, one last thing. Today's program will be recorded and will then be posted on our website. And we'll also send you a link to the recording once this webinar has concluded, probably in a day or two. So with that, it's now my great pleasure to introduce you to our primary school principals. We have Pauline Markey from our East Campus and Brian O'Meloin from our Dover campus. And I think Pauline's going to kick us off. So over to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Malika. So my name's Pauline Markey, as Malika said, and I'm the primary school principal at our East Campus. And as such, I have overall responsibility for our 4 to 11-year-olds or our K1 to grade 5 children. The choice of school we make for our children is perhaps one of the biggest and most important decisions we'll ever make as a parent. And this is no different for us as educators too. I've been an educator for over 30 years and I've been in international schools for over 25. And like you, I carried out my research before joining Uwcsea. I was looking for the right school for my children, as well as the right professional environment for myself. I can hand on heart say it was an amazing decision that we made 9 years ago. I'm now in my 9th year and I don't regret a moment either for my children or for myself. My daughter had graduated a couple of years ago, or actually in the pandemic year 2020. She's now working in the High Court in Dublin and studying to be a barrister. And my son, despite saying he never would be a teacher, is a teacher of computer science in Belgium. And my husband worked in the high school as a head of theory of knowledge as well. So it's a bit of a family affair. I know we are biased, but I have to say we have the very best job in the world, not only being educators, but being primary school educators, where there isn't a day goes by where we aren't, our life isn't enhanced and enthralled by the curiosity and enthusiasm of our young learners. We're delighted that you're joining us today. We hope you learn more about our wonderful school and how passionate we are about our programme. And of course, we really hope you can join us on campus to really feel the magic that happens here and to meet some of our fantastic students. I'll now hand over to my counterpart, Brian, to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, so my name is Brian O'Meloin, which is a Gaelic name. It causes people all kinds of trouble. And so people here call me Mr. O. I joined the school in the year 2000 as a grade 2 teacher, and then I was head of grade 4 for a while, vice principal for a while, and I think this is my 17th year as primary school principal on Dover campus. So We, as Pauline said, it's a very dynamic school and a very hard school to leave. Our teachers tend to have quite a long tenure here, which is a really good sign of any school that you might look at. We are very fortunate. We have very well resourced and everything we need. So it can be a very demanding job, but it really helps that we love it. So I have 3 children as well who went through the school, who went through the infant section of the school. Pauline and I are very conscious that even though you're looking at infant school today, you probably are also choosing the school that will be your child's school as they go right through juniors, middle, and high school as well. So when we talk about the schools, sometimes we will reference where they're going next because we recognize that that's important. And so we really are looking forward to just sharing a little bit with you today. As Pauline said, we hope you can come actually onto the campus and see the children and feel the atmosphere, because it's incredibly, yeah, it's dynamic and it's like a 5-ring circus here when we get going. So obviously then, if we have the next slide, if I just show you, we can't achieve this by ourselves. It's quite a large school. So there you have in front of you Tracy Yolkman, who is the vice principal in charge of the infant school at East Campus, and Vicky Wright, who works with me here on the Dover campus. So we are, you know, again, Vicky and Tracy are very busy, and they take care of, we split the school up into sections in this way because it is quite a large school and we're very conscious of the largeness of it. And so we like to break it up into more manageable sections, not just for operational necessity, but so that the students themselves feel like they have a smaller home base. So you will be hearing later from Tracy and Vicky in the Q&A section. And I'm just going to start off. I think I'm handing over to Pauline now, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So the next slide, please. So today we'd just like to begin by sharing a little bit more about UWC, not necessarily UWC Today, or if you choose to join our school, you won't be just joining our school here in Singapore. You'll be joining the whole UWC movement, and you can see there from the map of the world that we have 18 colleges all around the world. And our founder, Kurt Hahn, opened the first college in Atlantic College in Wales in 1962. And their mission has grown all around the world, but we share that very same mission and the very same purpose. So I just wanted to say welcome to the UWC International Movement and to UWC in SEA in Singapore. So looking at our mission, as you are there on the screen, to make education a force to unite people, nations and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. Quite a lofty mission, you'll say, but it is something that we live and breathe every day. We use the mission as a filter for all decisions we make around our students and our students' learning. And our aim is to develop responsible global citizens who will embrace that mission long after they've left our school and go out and make a difference in the world. We talk to the children about being change makers. When you look at that mission, it's probably very likely that the words unite and peace and sustainability stand out. But actually, one of the key words in there for us is people. And that's what we're all about, relationships and people. The children we have are the most engaging and articulate, capable young people, curious, and we learn from them every single day that we're here. Adults we have are committed, qualified, experienced, and passionate group of staff who care for your children. And we talk about a team wrapped around the children because there are teachers, there are teaching assistants, there are specialist teachers, there's our facility staff, and everyone behind the scenes. And each team, their mission is the same: to make this the best place to provide the best learning opportunities for the children in our care. Now, none of that would happen if we didn't have an amazing supportive parent body. They're engaged, they're diverse, and they're eager and willing to support our students, but also to support families and support each other. And this is incredibly important, especially when we have new families join the school. Next slide, please. Brian spoke about the size of the school, and they are very large schools. You can see it broken down there into primary, middle, and high. But even the primary is broken down into infants and juniors and broken down further into grades. So for a K1 child, for example, they have a feeling of being a part of a small community, and that's their grade community. And the same for K2, the same for grade 1. So even though they're in a large school in terms of numbers and actually the size of the campus, their life is centered around their classrooms, their pod, their play areas, and their learning environment. So it doesn't feel too big for them. However, one of the real advantages of being in a K-12 school is the fact that we do have young children and young people from 4 right up to K-12, 18-year-olds. And those older students are incredible role models for our youngest learners. And they're excellent, and they actually take that role and responsibility very, very seriously. We have a number of programs in school that bring the older and the younger students together. So we have some buddy programs where a high school class will buddy up with a primary school class, and they'll come down and they'll share their learning on a weekly basis. Sometimes very difficult to get those grade 10 boys away from the water tray or the train set to leave the classroom. And we also have a doctor boarder scheme. So the scholars who come and reside in our boarding house and learn at our school, primary classes will adopt one of those and develop a very special relationship with those boarders, not only during their 2 years of studying here, but quite often far beyond. Quite recently, I'll just tell you a little story. Quite recently, one of our parents returned from a trip to New York, where she met up with one of those students who'd been a boarder buddy for her son when her son was in K2. He's now in grade 8. And the alumni from the school was really keen to take her around, show her around New York, and treat her because she'd had such a significant impact on her life when she was a boarder at our school. This values-based education that we're so proud of really does develop those relationships, but that sense of service to others in our younger children. We want well-rounded individuals who'll thrive, not only as members of our school community, but much wider, both in the local community and with our global partners. So what might that look like in a typical day? Brian.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. So yeah, obviously no 2 days are the same, but I think parents find it useful to hear what kind of a day, what was a typical day look like in the infant school. So for us, the day begins, the kids start to arrive between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. They tend to play in the classroom in K1, K2, get ready for the day. Grade 1, maybe they're out a little bit more at that time before school starts. And that at about 8:05, 8:10 maybe, then they're all in class and they start off the day usually with a kind of a circle group and a discussion setting out what the day is like. Like in most schools that you're used to, the vast majority of their day and of their week is spent with their one classroom teacher. And then in this school, they go to specialist lessons in infants for music, for languages, and for physical education, PE. So that is usually about maybe the total of about 8 periods out of about 40 periods in the week that they would spend with specialist teachers. Mostly they're with their teacher and their teaching assistants. And at that age, you ask those kids, who's your teacher? And they name 2 or 3 people. They don't distinguish one from the other. These are the adults around them. So it is very like most schools that you would find. It is mostly spent with one classroom teacher, and that's who they identify with mostly, and then they have some specialists. So that would be really a typical day. Sometimes then the kids at 2 o'clock when the school day ends. Some children might stay behind to do activities, and then they will go home on their bus, on the activity bus at 3 p.m. But that tends to be, not many activities per week because the kids are very tired. And again, I should have said in the beginning of the day, they might have brain food, that kind of thing. They break for brain food, they break for snack and lunch during the day as well. The day ends at 2. Some kids do activities and stay on until 3. Okay, next slide, please. So then you will hear a lot of talk, and if you're onto the campus, you will see this quite a lot. So this is what we call the learning program. And it is deliberately designed as a circle. In the middle there, around the word learning program, you see 5 elements, which are academics, activities, service, personal social education, and then outdoor education. You will hear this idea of educating the whole child or holistic education. Different schools call it different things. We really mean it here. And we interweave everything we can through these 5 elements. We very much place concurrent faith in all 5 in terms of developing that rounded individual at the end of it. Obviously, each element doesn't get the same amount of time or the same amount of budget because they don't need it. By a country mile, academics is the one that gets the most money and the most time. Like I mentioned, the kids are spending most of their time with their teacher in classroom. Other things then we weave in and around it. So we will put outdoor education as part of that curriculum, a part of that week, and part of the daily routine of the children will be playing outside, learning from nature, learning about nature, but our main aim is that they're learning for nature in the end. So it is, as we go through the rest of this presentation, everything really refers back to those 5 elements. And we're going to go through them pretty much one by one. And I'm going to start with academics. So if we could just have the next slide. So I think the first important thing to say about the academics program here is that it's very much interdisciplinary. If you're using the word discipline instead of the word subject or whatever paradigms of thought, as the kids are younger, they don't really have natural boundaries between the subjects. There are boundaries, but they're very blurry. And so very much everything we do is interdisciplinary. So they quite commonly the kids will go home and say, "What did you do at school today?" "We played," or "We did nothing." It's very common. But they don't realize that they're doing maths and learning how to count and learning how to read. They often don't realize that they're doing that. And it's all interwoven through the activities that they're doing with the teachers. Again, we have what we would call the core curriculum, which is very much being delivered by the classroom teacher. Maths, science, social studies. Again, if you ask your K1 child, "Did you do social studies at school today?" they won't know what you're talking about, but they are doing those kinds of things. We just don't call them those things. We do then, as you know, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, it is important for you to understand how the school as a whole from K to 12, how do we, for example, decide what content that we're going to teach? How do we pick that? So if we could just go to the next slide. So here's a question that we ask here and that is asked by international schools all over the world. Next slide. So when you have, close to 100 nationalities in a school, whose history do you teach higher up in the school? And many schools answer that question by, it might be that they are a school that's kind of affiliated to a national system. It might be that the school is a kind of a British ethos or grounded in the national curriculum from the UK, or that it is meant to be an American school abroad. And sometimes schools will decide that we are going to be for example, in our history program in grade 8 in middle school and high school, we are going to be Eurocentric or American-centric. When you have 80 nationalities, you could also try to teach a little bit of everybody's, which would be, really kind of pedagogically ridiculous. And so what we do here differently is we will look at a common big idea, something like conflict or migration, and then use several different bits of content to illustrate that concept. So I could talk a little bit about concept-based teaching and learning, but there is a much nicer video that one of our colleagues made before, and I'm just going to ask Malika to put that on now, and that explains it better.
What is concept-based learning? Concept-based learning is centered around big ideas. Ideas so universal that they transfer across place, time, and situation. Content is important, so students must acquire knowledge and skills within each discipline. But the ability to make sense of their knowledge and skills in the world around them is just as important. This doesn't happen by accident. Students are given a variety of experiences so that they develop conceptual understandings, significant ideas that transfer to new contexts. This ensures that they thrive in a complex and unknown future. The Uwcsea concept-based curriculum leads to the IB diploma in grades 11 and 12 and is developed from our mission. Our educational goal is that students embrace challenge and take responsibility for shaping a better world. To do this, they must develop higher-order thinking skills and apply their learning to diverse situations. Because our community is so international and diverse, our students bring a wide range of experiences, knowledge, and skills with them when they join us. A concept-based curriculum allows them to connect their prior learning to our experiences at school, as well as develop deep understanding. How do we develop conceptual understanding in our students? Concept-based learning goes hand in hand with learners having a diverse and broad range of experiences. This is achieved through all 5 elements of our holistic learning program: academics, activities, outdoor education, personal and social education, and service. We explicitly plan for concept-based learning by asking conceptual questions and teaching through inquiry, exposing students to content that stretches and deepens their thinking, fostering dialogue and collaboration, asking students to generalize and apply their ideas to new contexts. Together, these experiences support the development of conceptual understanding in our students.
Thank you, Brian. So you can see there the importance of children being able to transfer ideas and concepts. And it's critical that they can apply that learning to their world today, but to future situations as well. That's why a concept-based curriculum is so, so important. But in our infant school, which I think this picture sums up beautifully, we very much view play as a vehicle for their learning. Engagements, or what we call provocations, are set up through play to allow children to develop the qualities and the mindsets of being a researcher. It's often led by their interests or by their curiosity. And so while we have a concept-based curriculum with conceptual understandings and conceptual questions, that may look very different for different children, depending on their interests. We carefully observe the children engaged in their learning and nudge their learning forward with prompts and questions across all areas. As we know, children mimic real life and make connections and make sense of the world around them through play. They purposefully engage in the interdisciplinary projects Brian was talking about, and they lead their own learning around things that they're really interested in and passionate to learn more about. This can look really different. If I was to give you a couple of examples, on the East Campus, we have chickens, and the K1 children and the infant children visit the chickens regularly. So after a visit to the chickens, some K1 children got back to class and were really keen to investigate what do chickens eat. And so started a little research unit into chicken food, chicken eating habits. Are we giving them the right food? Are we looking after them well enough? And then created posters to put up on the chickens in the chicken's house, so that people would know and didn't give them the wrong things to eat. Another lovely story about how that changes children as well is we had a little boy join us, and he wasn't used to really being in the outdoors, and we have some fantastic outdoor learning spaces on both campuses, and outdoor learning is a huge part of what we do. And so after a while, and initially reluctant, the little boy enjoyed going to one of those spaces, the rain garden, where the mud kitchen is, where there's the pond and the fish and the tickle forest. And he then said, he told his teacher, before I came to UWC, I was an inside boy, but now I'm an outside boy. I love splashing in the puddles. So that impact that it has on them and their learning is quite profound. Next slide, please. So you'll see here one of our learning spaces for our infant classrooms. And we very, very much believe that the environment we actually call the environment the third teacher. We strive to create learning spaces that invite and promote research and inquiry, and both for the individual children, for groups of children, for the whole class. We're trying to develop that a curiosity and inquiry mind in the children. Everything is set up quite intentionally to facilitate that and to provoke their thinking, building on their existing knowledge and understanding and the wealth of experience they bring when they visit us. If you are fortunate enough to visit the campus for the open days next week and the week after, you will see these classrooms or the pods, and you'll see how flexible they are, the different arrangements of furnitures and provocations. And hopefully you'll see evidence of the children's voice, not only displayed in their learning on the walls and boards, but also in the way the pod's set up, which they have a very, very big voice in, and that's why it changes quite often as well. So we work really hard to construct an environment and the learning that allows their questions and interests to lead their learning and to nudge them forward with that. Thank you. Next slide. We're now going to hear about one of the other elements of our programme, personal and social education, which underpins absolutely everything we do at Uwcsea. Brian.
Thanks, Pauline. So yeah, if you remember, we had our 5 elements. So we've talked about academics a little bit, and I think for the rest of this, we'll do the other 4. And so we're just starting with personal and social education, which is very much what it said. It's about how the kids learn about themselves, their personal, and then how they are social and they're managing their relationships with others. So recently I sat down with Vicky just to discuss personal and social education, and I'll stop talking now and let you watch this. Okay, so I'm joined now by Vicky Wright, and Vicky is the Vice Principal in charge of the infants part of the school, which is K1, K2 and Grade 1. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk a little bit about our well-being program. Yeah. And I guess the why we do it might seem obvious, but can you talk a little bit about our why and more about how we achieve our well-being program here?
Yeah, and I think one thing that we all want is for children to be happy, and we know that children learn best when they're happy. And we also know that children are only happy if they feel psychologically safe in a school and in a building, and if they have those relationships with their teachers. So we work really hard to build relationships, first of all, and communities and classroom communities. And then we have different tools to support that. So we have a structured written PSE curriculum. We have wellbeing check-in tools that different classes do at different times depending on the needs.
So what does PSE stand for people, because we've got people from all over the world watching. What's that maybe in other countries?
Yeah, so in most countries they will use personal, social and emotional education, and it's really about teaching to those holistic skills that we want children to have, and that actually is embedded in all our programming, all our academics. It doesn't just sit out in one lesson, so you won't often have a lesson that says PSE. It will be embedded in all we do, and that's all teachers, whether they're a classroom teacher or a specialist teacher, they're looking at that program all the time. We're also really lucky that we have some specialist support here. We have a counselling team and we have social and emotional coaches, and they work with the teachers all the time. So that wellbeing piece is probably, I would say, the most important thing that we're doing all the time.
Yeah, it can be hard to describe, kind of, because it's kind of the non-subject, non-discipline, in between it's the life of school, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but it's the stuff that we need to be doing all the time. And I think school acknowledged that when they wrote the wellbeing principles.
Yeah.
They wanted this to be something that as a community we all engage in. So it's not just about teacher-student, it's about teacher-teacher or teacher with families, teachers with parents, and those wellbeing principles underpin everything that we're doing in the community.
Yeah. So our wellbeing principles are, you know, we want everyone to have, you know, a feeling of connection, autonomy, some sense of independence, that they have some choice, and that they have competency that's valued. So how do we go about achieving those three facets of our wellbeing principles?
And I think that it is deliberate and it's intentional. We don't just expect it to happen, which is partly why we have a written curriculum and that we make sure that everybody who works here is aware of those. But I think the connection's really important. It's a big school, and so connections are really important, but maybe don't happen as naturally as they would do in a smaller school. So I think we deliberately create time for teachers to work together. We create times in the day where teachers and children connect, whether that's through a morning meeting. We invite parents on campus a lot. I mean, they're here all the time, connecting. We invite voices and opinions, and it's interesting because as the children get older, their opinions and voices get stronger, and as a parent that can be quite hard when they're coming home and they have these opinions and voices, but we actively encourage it, and we know that when children feel connected to adults, they're much more likely to share if they have a problem. I think the autonomy is a really interesting one, because if you ask teachers why they work here, they will often say, because I'm able to have a voice in what I do. And I think children feel the same. They have a choice, whether it's in K1 when they're choosing where they want to play, sand or water, or whether it's when they're in grade 5 and they're choosing which maths problem to tackle and where they're ready. So, and I think competency, we know if children feel competent, and we talk about that healthy stretch, when children know they're being stretched and they are competent and they have the skills and the knowledge to answer what's in front of them, then those three things, if they can have those three things, then they'll feel successful in school.
So you mentioned the proactive, you know, preemptive kind of stuff, the PSE curriculum. Obviously then sometimes things go wrong. How do we approach, sometimes unfortunately we have to be reactive to an incident in the playground or to something. Talk a little bit about how we do that.
Well, I think the reality is that children are human as well, and they're going to make mistakes and get things wrong, and I think our job is to provide systems and structures so children feel comfortable to report and share. And then I think also then we have to look at everybody involved. How do we help them? We use a lot of restorative conversations. When children are ready, we want them to feel that they are part of that work. And also we want children to understand where it went wrong and how it can be changed in the future. So the reality is that they will get things wrong, and this should be a safe space. I will often say to families, this is the place where we want them to make these mistakes so that we can help them.
Sometimes children who are unhappy don't tell us they're unhappy. How do we get around that problem?
Yeah, and it's hard because children can present. We know this as being very happy, but there's something underlying that's concerning them or worrying them. I think our check-in tools are great because they can speak to a teacher if they feel comfortable, but we also have other ways. I went in a class recently, they had a little monster worry box where the children could put their worries inside. We have a counselling team. There's multiple adults around a child, but also we build close relationships with families. And we encourage families to share with us, and they know that we'll take what's being shared seriously and do something about it.
Okay, thank you. So just to take a side view as a little bit as well, or kind of an overarching view again, we also embed our mission and our values, which you can see there in front of you, and the skills and qualities. And these things are manifest through the PSE program that you just heard about, through outdoor ed service and activities that you're about to hear about. And it's all with the idea that we want our children, whenever they leave us, you know, whether they graduate at 18 or they leave at grade 6 or whenever they have to leave us, that we want them to have an awareness of issues, social and political issues. We find that there's no point in them being aware unless they're willing to do something about it, and we want them to do the right things about it. So we want them to be kind of aware, able, and active, and develop these skills and qualities and live by the UWC principles. So as we move on to outdoor education, we again, we thought it would be better if to sit and listen to an actual conversation about outdoor education. So I sat with Ali, who is one of the junior school vice principals, to talk about that recently. Okay, so thanks, Ali, for joining us today. We're going to have a little chat about the outdoor education element of our program, and we place a very high premium on that in this school. So why do we do that, and what value do students get from it, I guess?
Well, yeah, we do place a high premium on outdoor education here, and we do that because, like parents, we want our students to grow up to be healthy, confident individuals who can tackle the challenges of life. And classrooms provide a lot of ways to learn those things, but being outside in the natural environment gives us something different. It allows students to take risks and work with their peers in different ways. And the unpredictability of outside allows kids to kind of face challenges that they might not be ready for, which is what life is all about.
Do you think outdoor education still has a place, like an important place in a modern education system with all the pressures of college and everything that they need? Does it still have a place?
Yeah, I think possibly even more now than ever before.
Yeah.
Right? With screen time and busy schedules and just city life, we're spending less time outside, and our kids are spending less time outside. And, we know from research that the more time we spend inside, the bigger effect that it has on our health, our physical health, our mental health, our resilience.
Yeah.
And even our ability to work with our peers.
Yeah. So what do we do then? How do we address those things? What do we provide?
Well, how we address that is in our program, outdoor education is one of our 5 elements. And therefore, it is as important to us as academics. And we're intentional. We're intentional about how and when we plan those things for the kids. Again, classrooms can provide so much for students, but they don't provide this opportunity to learn and do while they're learning, take those risks and really get their hands stuck in the mud, right?
Yeah. We sometimes, I think, confuse the expeditions program with the outdoor ed program. And so people often talk about what is the place of the expeditions program within the overall outdoor ed program? Yeah.
Well, yeah, the expeditions is a big part of our outdoor ed program. It's not everything, for sure. Like you said, we have lots of other opportunities to be outside. But perhaps I would argue that is one of the most memorable parts of our program.
Yeah, that's for sure.
As our kids move through the school, it is one of the things they always talk about. And I can say from my own experience as a parent, my kids talk about that, and from kids I've taught, right? It's the thing they hold on to. And it's really one of these places where we as primary school teachers think about where they've come from, right? And then where they're going finally.
So what's the progression like from primary school through to the next stage and the next stage?
Yeah, so I guess starting in grade 1, although not an expedition, the grade 1 sleepover here at school is the first nudge towards, leaving, going on an expedition. And then from there, grade 2 goes to the zoo, and our first time to go overseas is grade 3, and they head to Malaysia for a couple days. And then after that, it's kind of a little bit longer, a little bit further, and certainly the activities they do get more challenging, more adventurous as they move up through the school, and then ultimately leading up into grade 11.
Yeah, and are we counting on our own teachers to have the expertise to lead caving and rock climbing, and how do we manage that?
No, certainly not. We hire professionals to run those activities, although teachers take part in them and enjoy them as much as the kids most of the time. Yeah. But certainly we have experts who know the area and have all of the equipment and the things we need to lead those safely.
So much more valuable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to continue in the theme of the other elements, we're now going to hear from Ian Deep, who is one of our primary leaders of the service programme in the primary schools.
So our activities program, unlike other schools, which might be seen as extracurricular, is one of our 5 learning elements. And the big aim of the program is for students to explore lots of new interests. When they found something they like, develop their strengths, and hopefully during their course of the program, they find some passions that they really, really love and they like to pursue further.
And tell me a little bit about this notion of long-term athlete development.
So with long-term athlete development, it can be applicable to a number of different areas and sports particularly. So certainly within the early years, we want them to explore as many different interests as possible. If you haven't tried lots of different things, you don't know where necessarily your passions might lie. And if it's okay actually within that journey to have some polarizing experiences as well. So not everything you will try will absolutely resonate with you, but when you do find something you love and it becomes a passion, then it's very easy in terms of committing longer hours to that particular sport or activity.
And I suppose an example of that would be ball skills. So that can be transferred to so many different sports.
Absolutely. So if you're learning to catch within maybe cricket, you might transfer that into being a goalkeeper in football, for example. And again, there might be elements of invasion games from netball that might translate well into basketball and football and other team sports.
Fantastic. So we've talked about sports there, but one of the things I'm most proud of at our school is the absolute breadth of experiences and opportunities our children get. Our children get through our activity program. Tell us a little bit more of the range there, because I know we have different categories.
Yeah, we've got a huge amount of different activities on offer. So from more traditional activities that you might expect, so within our drama, which eventually leads to the school production as well, to a huge range of different musical instruments that the students can learn as well, to more traditional clubs. So we have chess, we have a magic club at the school, which
very popular,
is very popular indeed. Baking club, global cooking. The list really is endless, and it's brilliant that our students generally do dive into different activities across the 4 different seasons, which last approximately 8 weeks. So that's a really nice amount of time for them to try something. And then at the end of that period, decide, oh, is this something I want to continue and dive into a bit more? Or shall I explore one of the different things that we have on offer here at the college?
And another area is student leadership. And we have actually lots of different areas in that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the leadership opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have opportunities such as debating club and, of course, our student council. Elected as well. So this is one of the ones where actually there's a lot of agency and choice from the students as well, and they'll give a small presentation to their peers in their class, and then someone will be nominated forward to represent their class to put forward ideas to improve basically different ideas within the school as well.
And we have other ones, don't I think we have peer mentors,
mentors
leaders
as well.
of environmental action.
Yeah, LEAP as well. So a huge amount of different opportunities for leadership within the school.
And this year we added library leaders to that leadership programme. So we're trying to look for children to have that leadership experience, but in, again, an area that they're more passionate about.
Absolutely.
Etc. So. Always very difficult to listen to yourself or watch yourself on a video, but here we go for the very last one of our 5 learning elements, our service learning programme. And I got the opportunity to speak to Tom Roos, who's the head of primary service at our campus.
I think the core tenet of our service programme in the primary school is that you are never too young to make a difference.
Absolutely.
The main thing that we always want to do is make sure that our children see themselves as change makers, and everything that we do is to set them up so that they can see the world through their own eyes and make tangible real world differences to make the world a more sustainable and peaceful place in line with our college mission.
And we quite often have stories from our children about how they really have gone and taken action in their own communities. Have you any stories to share?
Absolutely. Our service programme is structured in a way that our very youngest students learn about themselves and they learn about kindness. But from that point onwards, we expand their worldview, looking at ways that they can make a difference within the college, things that they can do in our local community in Singapore, and then we introduce them to the global context as well. So within the college setting, we have a lot of sustainability initiatives that our students are part of. So for example, composting, gardening, all sorts of different real world applications, getting a little bit messy in nature and having that sense of shared responsibility to each other. In the local context, we work with a lot of partnered non-profit organizations here in Singapore. We have our students doing all sorts of different things like befriending seniors, or maybe spending time working with an organization that supports migrant workers or people with disabilities. It's all about learning with others rather than learning from or about others. It's all about reciprocity. It's grounded in that. And then the global context is really fantastic and inspiring. It's about introducing our students to stories of change makers from across Southeast Asia, addressing really important issues like access to education, things like human rights or possibly wildlife conservation. But the main thing out of all of those different settings is that students understand that there are so many different ways that they are able to have an impact in the world around them.
And it's funny you mention that, because only last week I received an email from a parent, and her daughter had chosen to have no birthday presents and no gifts for a birthday, and asked her friends to make a donation and wanted that money actually to go towards one of our global partners.
That's fantastic.
And she's 7. So I think it really shows that it actually does make a difference, and the children think really deeply about their service learning.
Absolutely, it's really important to them. They feel a real sense of connection with all the different organisations that we work with. I think that's really a wonderful story.
Yeah, it really, and it's one of many, I have to say. There are many stories like that. So we've looked at some of the examples. Can you maybe focus in on one example? I think maybe let's think of our youngest children, our children in the infant school, because we do quite often think of it as, oh, the older children, I can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But our youngest children, maybe with our local partners.
Well, I mentioned talking about befriending seniors, and we've had a really wonderful partnership that's brand new this year with an organisation based just very close by in Bedok Reservoir. It's an active ageing centre, and our students are grade 1 students, so they're 6 turning 7 years old. They've been visiting there every Friday morning. They've been joining them with their exercises, learning about the needs that older people have in the ways that they need to move and stretch their bodies. They've been preparing different exercises for the seniors to follow. They've then been performing songs and different performances that they've written back in class to entertain the seniors. And they bring loads of games and activities, tabletop sort of things that they can do together. And it's been just a really, really special partnership over the last 4 or 5 months. We've had so many thank you cards back from the seniors saying that it's been a really important part of their week and it's made such a difference to them.
And lifted their spirits.
Absolutely.
Massively.
So the students are able to see that they can have that impact out in the local community, and that befriending is such an important thing to do.
And there you have it. There's our full holistic learning programme with the 5 elements there in front of you. And each are equally important. As Brian said, they don't have the same amount of time, but they're definitely equally important in our pursuit of our college values and our mission. But a huge part we haven't mentioned yet, next slide please, is we couldn't do any of this without the most amazing partnership we have with our parent community. We have a wonderful supportive parent community that support their children, they support each other, they're caring, they're committed, they're willing and able to come in and support, share their expertise with our children to bring the learning to life. And our PA in particular, our Parent Association, work really hard to strengthen and nurture those relationships. But they play a huge part in the children's learning, as we all know. As a parent, especially if you're a new parent, the PA support each other. We have language and nationality groups. We have a whole range of activities you can get involved in. We have service opportunities for parents as well that you can get involved in. And all of this really, really supports the child's learning, because they see you mirroring and modelling exactly what we're trying to do with them and their learning. Next slide, please. And that really just leads into this, that community is a very big part of what we do. It's actually really the essence of our mission as well. And it's in our infant school, that strength is in collaboration. It's those team of people who are working with all the students to support and extend their learning. As I said, we're a large school, but that's broken down into really small communities where all children can feel safe, and that sense of belonging that we strive for every child. We do expect a pedagogy, and we model a pedagogy of respect and responsive listening to our children, because that's what we want them to go out and be. We want them to be happy, we want them to be articulate and passionate, and we want them to be not only lifelong learners, but lifelong listeners, ready and able to make a difference out in the world beyond our school gates. So, we've talked about nearly everybody except for the most important people that we have today. Let's hear from our students.
I like that we can be creative. You could learn a lot. How to read. Making friends. I like football outside. I like what we're learning about. I like this school with a lot of good friends. I learn lots of things. I like that we get to learn about numbers. Writing workshop, discovery, reading workshop, English. Backflips and front flips on the rings and gymnastics. Play, paint, color. We have to be safe, look where you're going, respect each other and the environment. They help us when something's really hard. The teachers don't shout at kids when they get something wrong. They just ask them, can you try again? If we don't know how to spell something, they tell us to sound it out. They let us have creative time for a long time, and then when we need to learn, it gives me inspiration of what I need to build next. Making new friends. Playing the playground and discovering out new stuff. So then with the plants, when one falls down off the thing, I can pick it up and make potions. I never made a potion in my life. Was playing in the playground. Was playing pirates. And I also playing outside with soccer. They're nice, funny, nice, and cool. They're just really good. The teachers are good at listening. By cheering them up and playing with them, making new friends with them. It's really fun in the school, and other kids and teachers help other people. I'll tell them, come to UWC, it's gonna be really fun. There's so much kids that it will be fun. You can ask the teacher for some help, or you don't have to ask the teacher. You can ask anybody. If someone's sitting lonely on the chairs down there, we can go and ask them if they want to play with us. It's okay, I'm gonna hold your hand together. I'll say, hello, come on, with me. Bye-bye, camera.
So tell me, who wouldn't consider that to be the best job in the world when you're working with those people, our future leaders of the world as well? Thank you so much for joining us for the presentation. It's not over yet. We hope, though, you have got an insight to our programme and actually just how we operate here at Uwcsea. We're immensely proud of our school. It's a very, very special place because of the people who are in the place. So before we hand over to Lucy and the Q&A session, I'd like to say thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you next week. And from Brian.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pauline and Brian. I'm just checking that everybody can hear me and that my microphone is working. I have been the victim of some technical difficulties today, so I'm pleased to be able to join you. Thank you, everybody, for coming and giving up your lunchtime to be with us today. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation from our primary school principals. Certainly a lot of information has been shared and we've seen some amazing videos, especially the favourite video, which is the one of the little students at the end there. So now I am joined by Tracy and Vicky, who are the principals of our infant school, and Malika Ramdas, who is the director of our admissions. And we've had some terrific questions come in throughout the course of the presentation, so I really appreciate everybody for sharing their questions. We have roughly 30 minutes to run through them, and where we hopefully will get to all of them, but where we've had similar questions, we've sort of combined them. So let's kick it off. And I think I might go to you first, Tracy. And I know you've got a little bit of a hoarse voice there, so we will forgive you if you need some water throughout this session. Please,
Thank you very much.
No problem at all. So the first question is around the, so we've had a number of questions around different learning styles, different social and emotional development, and of course, different sort of, we see the word often gifted children come up in these sessions. So can you just tell us how UWC supports each child's individual learning journey in these formative early years, balancing the play, the academics, the PSE, and accommodating those different styles and paces? And if you can just provide a little bit of information again about the support for children who are perhaps being challenged, academically challenged, and those who are perhaps neurodivergent or have dyslexia, and how we sort of support them in these early years and prepare them then for the more structured years ahead as they progress.
Okay, wow. Again, apologies if I do sound a little croaky. Anyway, let me jump into your question there, Lucy. There was lots to it, so if I miss some bits, just remind me, or Vicky, you jump in as well. So I think one of the things that's really important and we really value is that every child is unique and every child is coming to us with their own wealth of knowledge, interests, and we are looking at that, and we're looking at them developing from where they are to their next steps in their learning journey. Everybody's learning journey is individual and different. And I know that might sound like, well, how can you meet the needs of all these individual children? But there are times where we are working as a class or a group to give some more explicit instruction around something, and then children will have an opportunity to play, practice, and then we are approaching children individually to see what else they need. We have and I can talk about this a bit more later, a concept-based curriculum, but within that there are a lot of knowledge and skills that we are working towards. So although it is play-based, we're trying to, what we do is we bring that curriculum and the interests of the child and those skills together throughout their play. So we're looking at, so one child might be developing some number skills through something they're doing in a role play area, while another child might be preferring to more formally have a number grid and be looking at numbers in that way. So children might be doing that in slightly different ways. We have a really great support team that we work with. So we have, we call it support services team. So we have, as I think was mentioned earlier, school counsellors that come in to help support. We also have learning support team. We have an English as an additional language team. We also have some people that come in to support us with social emotional learning and occupational therapy. That looks a little bit different on each campus, but that there's an option to access that as well. So as teachers in a classroom, you have an opportunity to tap into these experts that can help you with some of those children who maybe learn in, a slightly different way. How can we move, help them to be their best selves and move from where they are to the next steps in their learning journey? Between the play and the more explicit teaching, and I always think of in the infant school, we start in K1 really their learning is through their play. They're learning so much every day through their play, and that play is intentional. Teachers have planned based on what they've seen, what the curriculum is. They put that all into place. By the time they get to grade 1, it's more playful learning. So they're learning through their play when they start. So it does evolve and change as they start to get older. And of course, by the time they get to grade 12, there's probably not a lot of that, unfortunately. but yeah, so that learning through play does sort of evolve as they go through. With students who, and we don't necessarily use the term gifted students. Every child has their own strengths and their own areas to develop. But any child who maybe, there are opportunities for us to group some children together who maybe have a strength in a particular area across a grade and things like that we would do to support individual needs. So it really is more about those individual needs. What are their strengths? And of course, any child who has some extreme strengths in one area probably has other areas that they're needing to develop. And so we try to balance that as well.
Terrific.
Not sure if I answered your whole question or not, Lucy.
No, that's terrific. And look, if I could just add, and actually you'll have to forgive me to all our participants, I forgot to introduce myself and what my role is at the college. I was so focused on my technical issues. So my name is Lucy. Obviously, I am the head of marketing and communications here. But I'm also a parent, and I was a parent before I started working here. And my children were under Vicky's care when they came into K1. They're now in grade 4 and 5. And just to sort of add a parent's perspective onto Tracy's answer there, I've seen them move from K1 up to now grade 4 and 5. And I have a neurodivergent child as well who has accessed some of that support, and what that looked like in K1 now looks very different in K4, where the focus is becoming a little bit more structured for him in particular. But one thing that really attracted me to UWC as a parent when I was doing the same research that you're all doing now is there was no homework in those infant years, but there was a big focus on reading. So it was about developing a child's communication skills, creativity, language, and so that was sort of the homework in those infant years, which then as they started to progress into junior school, they would now start to come home with a little sheet with some mathematics or something to do with languages. So they started to develop this structure once they hit about grade 1, grade 2, where then they're starting to get used to the fact that now we have to do a little bit of homework through the week. But the reading has remained consistent throughout their junior school, their primary school years. And I've seen the benefits of that as they begin to sort of progress, and one of them is in their final year. And just one thing to add, which is really important, is that all our educators are focused on ensuring that each child in their classroom can access the curriculum and is appropriately challenged by the curriculum. So what that means for different children, as Tracy said, is different. And our teachers are quite incredible at being able to identify where a child might need some additional help with certain areas or needs to be additionally challenged in certain areas. So that's a parent's perspective. Vicky, was there anything else to add?
You actually stole my
your
thing I was
thunder. Sorry.
which was actually just very much about, I mean, the biggest skill a teacher needs to have is that ability to understand where each child is at and how you differentiate for them. So actually that is what I'm looking for in all teachers, is to be able to say, okay, this is what I know about this child, and to be able to communicate that with families as well, so that families are continually kept up to date with where their child is on and what the next step is. Like Tracy mentioned, we don't expect children to walk at the same time, and that's the same with learning. And that's not always just reading and writing. That can be social skills, how they work with other people. We're building that all the time, and every child is on their own unique pathway, but in a safe community.
Terrific. Whilst I have you, Vicky, I'm going to just go to a question around how we nurture and support children in such a large community. We are a big school, but parents are asking particularly around children who are shy or perhaps need a little extra help socially. And I'd like you to also just touch on how we manage bullying. I know you've spoken about the PSE, but perhaps you could talk about that. And then the final piece to this question, because I've combined all these questions into one. So how we nurture those children who need a little extra help, how we approach bullying, and then how do we communicate these challenges to parents, so that the parent-teacher/principal relationship.
Okay, so I'll start first with the large school. It's something that lots of families are concerned about, particularly in the early years. They're looking at their 4-year-old and they're wondering how are they going to manage this huge campus with all these older children around. And let me tell you, within 6 months of being here, the K1s strut around this school like they are the oldest people and the most confident children in school. And I think we're very mindful about how we do that. So both at East and Dover, we have these small pod spaces. So our K1s kind of live in these pod spaces, and that's where they spend most of the time. And they might venture out for PE, but it's always with the adults that they're used to being around. So it is a very large campus, but it's broken into these small spaces, and children really identify. Like if you ask any of our children, they'll tell you what their class is called, who their teacher is, where they belong. They're very aware of that identity. And so they stay in these small pod spaces, and we slowly introduce opportunities for them to mix in different spaces. So first of all, it's just within the infant school for our youngest ones. And then they might do a performance that has some older children in, and then they might have grade 10s come and help in the classroom as part of the grade 10 service commitment. So they're meeting older children, and slowly, bit by bit, they begin to gain this confidence on the campus. And we do it very slowly. And a parent said to me the other day, you know, my son's coming to K1 now, and my daughter, when she started, she was so quiet, and I can't believe what she's like now. She said, I don't know what you do to them, but you just give them that gift of confidence. And I think what it is we just start very slow, and we start very building relationships and build very carefully up to these events. So it's all very structured. And a parent came to me at the end of the year and said, you were right. I was worried about them on this big campus, but they're so confident now. So I think that's what I've learned. I've always worked at smaller schools, and I felt the same coming here as a teacher and then a leader. But actually, I think the way we structure these smaller groups helps to build towards that. So that's large school. Bullying, I think, you know, the reality is children are humans as well. And sometimes they're going to do things wrong and they're going to make mistakes. And I think there's two people to look at here. There's the person who's been bullied, and I think it's really important that that person is able to share what's happening to them. And we have multiple ways of doing that. Some children are confident to share with a trusted adult. Others will share with their parents. Others will share we have like well-being check-ins, and children can actually write that. So there's lots of different ways they can share what's happening to them. And I think the biggest takeaway, and I would say this is likely the same at East as well, is those children have a voice, and what is happening to them needs to be taken seriously and needs to be acknowledged and needs to be dealt with. So I think thinking, oh, children are children, it will pass. Do you know what? The reality is they often need adult support to work through these situations. They need adults in their corner. They need adults to help them restore relationships when they're ready. So we do have some quite clear behavioral guidelines that we follow as a whole primary school and into middle and high. And we have ways of responding to situations. Tracy and I, as pastoral leads, will be heavily involved in supporting that work. We also do a lot of kind of preemptive work on that as well, where we talk to children, what is bullying? What does it look like? What's the difference between somebody being unkind to you and when does it move into bullying? What can you do if you see somebody being bullied? How can you step into that? So I think the reality is these things sadly do happen, but I think it's how we respond to them that makes the difference. And I would say we're all very comfortable with stepping into that space and keeping parents informed all the time. Communication, if you choose this school and you come here, you'll see that there's a lot of communication. We try hard to streamline that and make it informative. Certainly in the early years, we have profiles of children, which we share all the time, learning portfolios. We have communication about events. I joked in the video that parents are here all the time. That's actually because we actively engage families. We want them to be part of this journey. We want them to see their child in this setting. We want them to see what they do. And we want to showcase those children. You know, we work with amazing children, and it's lovely to be able to showcase that. So communication, I would say we have a lot. It's very detailed. And if you want more, there's always, teachers love to talk about teaching and learning. So they'll always answer any parent questions.
Great. Thank you, Vicky. Tracy, this one, you actually answered it in part in your previous question, but we'll just touch on it again briefly around the concept-based learning and how does that actually work in practice in the younger years, particularly for those traditional subjects like English and maths. Can you maybe give us an example of what that could look like in the classroom?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you heard Carla on the video and you heard Brian and Pauline both talk about that concept-based curriculum and it being about those big ideas and making connections. And I think those are the two biggest elements to think about with it. And it doesn't matter how young you are, building an understanding of something rather than just being taught how to do it is really important. So if I look at, say, in K2, one of their conceptual understandings in English is understanding messages in text involves making connections and applying strategies. So that's the big understanding we want them to have. We don't want them to just pick up a book and read it and not sort of think beyond that, but it's understanding all those other elements. So we break that down and it's things like the knowledge and skills that requires in teaching students some specific strategies that will help them to look at connections they have. What do they, the messages that are being shared, whether it's for entertainment or whether it's for information. So just making those connections to what they already know, but then nudging that beyond to to how they can understand and use those strategies when they're looking at a book or a text. That goes across all curriculum areas. So where we can, we have an interdisciplinary program, which Brian mentioned earlier. So we might combine different subjects. Again, it's that making sense of it. It's finding that understanding. Those real world examples that we can use are much more of a stronger connection for students than it is to sit and look at a textbook or a worksheet and think about, shapes they shape, different shapes, but going out into the real world and looking for different shapes in their environment and making connections to what they know it just has that deeper understanding for them. They make those connections themselves. So whether it's an interdisciplinary unit or a specific discipline unit, like maybe an English or a math unit that we might do in isolation, it's always coming back to those knowledge and skills supporting that bigger understanding that we're wanting students to develop. Is that
terrific? That's terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. While I have you, I'm just going to ask you a very quick one, which is around the sports classes. But I think perhaps you could share the PE classes, but also we saw some great activities, so that are available. So maybe just how the younger kids can access these activities.
So all classes have PE lessons. It looks a little bit different at Dover to East. So they'll have 1 PE and 2 PMP, which is a perceptual motor program. And at East we have 2 PE. Our perceptual motor program runs for certain terms with certain grades. So they'll have that added in maybe for term 1, and then they might not do it again, or just certain students would continue with it for the rest of the year. So that part looks a little bit different. But our activities is also the other part. So when they finish school at 2, they have an option of, like you heard Ian talk about in the video, a range of different activities. And a lot of those are sports related that they can have access to. So yeah, they can sign up for those. We do try to, I guess we would say to parents, or we do say to parents, limit some of those activities to start with. We don't want children scheduled within an inch of their lives. After school, some of them really need to decompress and just have some downtime, but there are a lot of options if they wish to choose them.
Terrific. There are a lot of options.
A lot of options. And some of those go all the way through, like the gymnastics and the swimming, they can start and continue all the way through with, the coaching team that we have there, same with football. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I will just throw to our Director of Admissions here, Malika, because we have had a few questions regarding Singapore citizenship and dual citizens, if they, in terms of the application eligibility. Would you like to just give us a brief overview of that?
Sure, very happy to. I'll start by saying that we strongly encourage families who are asking about this to read the detailed information that we have on our website. We have a dedicated page called Information for Singapore Citizens. But briefly, we are open to accepting applications from Singapore citizens. However, we don't do that for K1 and K2. And the reason is that for students who are Singapore citizens, and that includes dual nationals who have Singapore citizenship as one of their nationalities, the entry to the college requires an MOE waiver, a Ministry of Education waiver, for a Singaporean to join an international school, to study at an international school. So we will only consider Singapore citizens for citizens' applications to the college if they are past the P1 registration age in the local system at the time they would be starting at the college. So that would be grade 1 for the vast majority of students. Beyond that, the important thing I will add is that while we are open to accepting applications, we do have very strict priority considerations for when we make offers to Singaporeans. And those are outlined on our website. And the reason we have to have those priorities is because we do have to very carefully manage our Singapore student numbers at the college. That is monitored by the government, and so we don't have an unlimited number of MOE waivers that we can support families to apply for. So I would just say, please do read the information on the website for more. And if you are attending one of our open days, we would be very happy to chat with you individually and respond further. Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. Okay, look, going back to our curriculum questions now, we'll stick with the admissions theme. So I will go to a question for you, Vicky, if you don't mind. Can you just tell us a little bit about the meet and play session? What is it?
So what it really is an opportunity for you and your child to come onto campus and visit one of our K1 classrooms if it's a K1 applicant, or grade 1 or K2, and actually your child will stay, and it is literally what it says on the packet. It's an opportunity for them to meet members of our teaching team and to have a play. And we don't sit and test children. We don't ask them to like schools I've worked in before where they had to name the alphabet, all the letters of the alphabet. It's not like that at all. It's an opportunity for them to come on campus. Do we have some children that cry? Absolutely. That's typical. Do we have some children that just can't separate from their families? Absolutely. That doesn't make them, it's not a fail for them if they can't separate. We absolutely know that every child is different. And really in that session, they sit and play. And some of the things we're looking for is really just readiness. And when we say readiness, we're looking for children who can make some choices of where they might want to play, that engage with different people around them. And when I say engage, it doesn't mean they have to be able to speak English and connect. It might just be a little smile. It might just be a little connection with another little friend in there. And we're looking for children who can maybe follow a simple instruction like tidy up. Again, if they don't understand English, they may look at their peers and copy what they do. And usually the thing is, like, we can't get them to leave at the end. They want to stay and play. We have to push them out the classroom because it's only an hour. So it's nothing. I really don't want families to worry about it. It's not meant to be intimidating. And most families say afterwards, oh, that was all that worry. It was very, very straightforward, and the kids really enjoyed it. And we run them same on East and Dover. So wherever you do your meet and play session, Tracy and I align kind of what readiness looks like so that we're in sync. So wherever you do your meet and play, it will be the same feel and the same criteria.
Terrific. Thank you. Whilst I have you, very quick one, the teacher to student ratio.
Yeah. So in K1, we have at Dover and East, we have 4 classes of 22 students, and our TA ratio it's like 2.8. So we have some classes will have 3, some will have 2 at different times, but we're very well staffed in K1. And then slowly as we go through primary school, we lessen the teaching assistant ratio. That's very strategic. That's about building independence. But in infant school, we're very well well staffed with over 20 TAs just in our infant department, and they work alongside the class teachers, and that's excluding then the specialist teachers, the learning support teachers. They all come in on addition to that. So 3 in K1, roughly 2.5 in K2, and roughly 2 to 2.5 in grade 1.
Thank you, Vicky. Tracy, back to you. We've had quite a number of questions around foreign languages. So I've again tried to combine them. So how is language learning structured in the infant school? What options are available? And I would say to the parents on the session today, we have a terrific languages brochure that you can actually download from the website, which has a really beautiful chart showing the language options right throughout the school. So please do seek that out. So what languages in infant school, and how are non-English speaking children supported? So the EAL provision in infant school.
Yep. Okay, so this is one that's slightly different on Dover and East. So at Dover we have K1 through to grade 1. K1 and K2 will have Chinese as their additional language that they learn, and that's 4 times a week. They go to an additional class. In grade 1, they have a choice of Spanish and Chinese. Is that right, Vicky? I can see you nodding. Good. I'm just trying to make sure I get it right. And then at East, we have the option of Chinese, Spanish, and French from K1 upwards if we have the numbers. So for instance, this year we didn't have the numbers to open a French class, so we just have Spanish and Mandarin. So it just depends on the year for us whether we have the numbers for that or not. But additionally to that, and that's what we would primarily consider a second language class, but there's also home languages classes after school. So as part of the activities program, there's a home languages program where, and again, this is something that it does depend if we have the numbers and the staff, although we do have some of those classes with just 3 students in them. But that then depends if they can get a teacher for that language. So we have a number of those home languages classes going on. We also we have some cultural classes that happen as well. So there's some slightly different versions of the languages program after school as part of the activities. It looks a little bit different than it does during the day, where we have those 4. At East, we have the 4 sessions a week as well, same as Dover, of the additional language class.
And EAL?
Oh, EAL. So we have EAL. So those students would go to, they would choose an additional language to go to. For some of them, it may be that their the additional language class is actually their home language, but they would go to that. And then we also have ways of supporting students within our classes who have English as an additional language. And I mean, in the infant school, all of our students are English language learners. They're all learning English. It takes 7 years to learn an academic language. And that's what we're doing at school. We're developing an academic language. So those students are all learning English. It's just they're at very different places in that. We have an English as an additional language teacher who sometimes they might be working with groups of students or individual students, but they also spend a lot of time working with teachers on strategies and ways that they can support children within the classroom as well, which is really important that we're getting to more students than maybe just the little group here or there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tracy. That's terrific. Look, we have time for just one more question, and it is an important one. It's come up a few times. And Vicky, if you wouldn't mind just finishing us off with this question. It's around smart devices. Do students come to school with phones? Do they have smart watches? And what's our sort of policy on that in the infant school?
Well, infant school and primary school actually have the same policy. We don't have phones or smartwatches at all. It's just not a thing. Sometimes older children will have them in their bags for use after school, but actually we have phones in the office. The kids are here all the time calling home. Like, there's lots of ways for them to reach home. They do not need a smartphone or a watch to do that. But obviously we do know that children are growing up in a technical world, and we also can't we know that the more you remove things, the more children want them, right? So we do teach them about technology in a safe way. They do have access to technology. Obviously, this is incredibly limited with the younger ones. In fact, most young children, if they get a choice of going out stomping in the mud or picking up an iPad, they actually choose to stomp in the mud when they're at school with their friends. So they do have iPad access, but it's very limited. It would be where we really feel like technology enhances the learning. It shouldn't replace learning. It's definitely not used as a babysitting tool. Hey, you go on your iPad while I do this. It's very much used in a way that supports learning. And it's done really with a focus on how to use technology responsibly, how to use it creatively. As they get older, some children, like my daughter, for example, for her, using text to talk as she's got older has been a really valuable way of her expressing herself. And that's used in the older ages with children who need that. And it's a tool. So really, technology should be a tool, not a toy, as we say about many things, and it's used in a way that's appropriate. We have an ongoing dialogue with families because obviously each family is unique in what they want for devices. So that's been an ongoing dialogue, but we really want them to be users of tech in a creative way and that supports learning rather than reliant on that for their kind of learning.
Thank you, Tracy. And just to add to that, as a college, we're obviously examining the role of AI overall and what role AI could play in the classroom of the future as we see this next sort of evolution in technology. Look, that's all we have time for in terms of the questions. We had a few that we didn't get to, so I apologise for that. Some really terrific questions, but of course you have access to our admissions department via the email. So please, if you do have any burning questions after today's webinar, email us and we will be able to respond to your question via email. A couple of things just to note. Next week, we have the on-campus in-person open days. So if you haven't registered for those, but you'd like to come and see the facilities and meet the lovely Pauline, Brian, Vicky and Tracy, and of course, Malika and her team, please make sure you sign up for those open days next, let me look at my diary here, next Tuesday and Wednesday. And finally, we're just going to show a little slide at the end here, which has a QR code, and we'd be incredibly grateful for any feedback on today's session. It's really helpful for us to understand what worked well, what didn't work, and what, anything that you think that we could do to improve this session for next year. So thank you once again for your time. Really appreciate you giving up your lunch to be with us today. And thank you to all our presenters, Pauline, Brian, Malika, Vicky, and Tracy. Thank you for joining us and for the wonderful insight into infant school at Uwcsea.
Thanks, everyone. We'll just leave the QR code up for a few seconds. And again, as Lucy said, a warm invitation to sign up for our open days. We've got East Campus open days on next week for the infant and junior school, and then Dover Campus infant and junior open days the following week. Thank you so much for giving up your time and see you soon.